A tower without doors. A girl with hair that touches the earth. A witch who climbs but never frees. It sounds like fantasy, a bedtime tale for children, but its meaning is far older and far darker. Hidden inside this story is a ritual remembered across 4,000 years, a curse bound in hair, a prison built of stone, and a power once feared by kings. Journey with me into the secret that Rapunzel was never meant to let down. They tell it to us simply: once upon a time a girl was taken from her parents. She was hidden away in a tower, a place without doors or stairs. The only entrance was from above. Her name was Rapunzel. Her hair, spun of gold, grew so long and so strong that it reached the ground itself. The witch who kept her prisoner climbed it like a rope. No one else was permitted. For years, the girl knew nothing beyond the stone walls. The tower became her world, her curse, her womb, and her tomb. But one day a prince found her. He called out to her, and her hair became the bridge between them. Secret meetings followed, whispers in the dark, the promise of escape. When the witch discovered the betrayal, she struck with fury. In some versions, she cut the girl's hair, severing her power. In others, she cast the prince down into thorns, blinding him forever. Rapunzel's love and suffering stretched across countless retellings, but always the central image remains a girl, her hair a tower, and a curse. Yet this simple tale is far older than the Brothers Grimm, who recorded it in the 19th century. The Grimm version is but the surface. Before Rapunzel, there was Personette, written in 1698 by Charlotte Rose de Caumont de
I've
la
waited
Force
so
in
long
France.
to see you again.
Before her, the Italians told of
my
Petronella, a girl trapped in a tower by an
cannot
ogress,
escape
whose
me
very name
now.
meant little parsley, recalling the herbs her mother once stole from the witch's garden. Each version strips and reshapes the story, but never abandons the image of the imprisoned maiden with extraordinary hair. Even
No,
deeper
please.
still, the motif surfaces across Europe and Asia. In medieval German folktales, maidens are locked in towers to protect them from suitors, or to protect the suitors from them. In Russian bylines, sorceresses weave enchantments into their hair, binding men to their fate. In old Persian stories, women's hair is the ladder between mortal men and the divine. Always it is the same hair as the tether, the bridge, the weapon, the curse. The girl herself becomes secondary. She is the vessel. Her body is locked away, her power contained, her very identity, reduced to the thing that grows from her head. And the
So
tower,
maiden,
why a
fair
tower?
and true, was
Because a
locked away
tower
by
is
her
both
father,
protection
a
and
tower
prison.
high, with no escape
High
from
walls
her
can keep
cruel
danger
fate.
out, but they also keep the prisoner in. The tower isolates, silences, sanctifies. It is not only a place of captivity, but also a sacred space, untouchable, unreachable, set apart from the world of the living. When we retell Rapunzel, we soften it into romance. The prince and the maiden, reunited, love triumphant, the curse broken. But listen closer and you hear the remnants of something darker. The cutting of hair is not merely punishment, it is ritual. The tower is not just a prison, it is a shrine. And the witch is not simply evil. She is guardian, priestess, keeper of a vow that predates the fairy tale itself. The story we hand to children is a fragment of something older, harsher, stranger. A ritual of captivity and power dressed in the simple clothing of a bedtime tale. Rapunzel's hair is not only golden, it is the thread that ties us back to a memory humanity has not yet let go. Rapunzel is not alone. The tower, the hair, the curse. These are fragments that echo across continents, each culture shaping them in different masks, but never letting them die. In Babylon 4,000 years ago, the goddess Inanna was said to descend into the underworld stripped of her garments and her powers one by one. Among the things taken was her hair, a symbol of divine strength and
My
fertility.
hair will remain
In
unbound
temple hymns, hair was
until the
not
wicked are
vanity.
destroyed.
It was the cord binding a woman to life, fertility and divine favor. When Inanna was confined in the great halls of the dead, her hair was gone. A goddess imprisoned, a shadow of Rapunzel. In India, the epic of the Mahabharata tells of Draupadi, whose hair became the vessel of a terrible oath. When her honor was violated, she swore never to tie her hair until vengeance was fulfilled. Her unbound locks became a living curse, a symbol of wrath that terrified even kings. Just as Rapunzel's hair was both a prison rope and a path to freedom, Draupadi's was both a mark of shame and a weapon of destiny. Hair in
Invocations
both
to the
tales
gods.
was never decoration,
We
it was
offer
the thread of
these
power.
sacred locks.
In Egypt, archaeologists have uncovered tombs where hair was carefully braided and sealed, sometimes kept apart in jars as offerings. To carry hair into the afterlife was to carry life force itself. The Book of the Dead speaks of spells to preserve the hair so the deceased could remain whole in the next world. A tower of stone, a body enclosed, and the precious strands within the image of Rapunzel's confinement begins to look like an echo of funerary practice, not a children's tale. Across the seas in Norse myth, the goddess Sif was famed for her golden hair. When Loki cut it away in mischief, it was not just humiliation, it was theft of fertility, theft of the earth's abundance. Her hair had to be replaced by strands of gold forged by dwarves, a divine compensation for what was lost. Once again, hair is not beauty alone, it is life itself. And in the folk traditions of Russia, long hair was bound with charms, plates used as amulets to protect against spirits. A maiden who let down her hair could summon storms, call spirits, or bind men to her will. The same gesture Rapunzel makes lowering her braid to the earth was once considered a spell. Even in China, hair carried a sacred weight. Confucius taught that hair was a gift from one's parents, not to be cut without reason. It was the ultimate tether to ancestry, lineage, and duty. To cut it was to sever yourself from your roots. Perhaps this is why the witch, cutting Rapunzel's hair, feels like more than cruelty, it feels like sacrilege. When we line these echoes side by side, the fairy tale becomes a mirror. Rapunzel's tower is not unique. It is a fragment of sacred enclosures, ritual prisons, and hidden chambers from Babylon to India to Egypt. Her hair is not random. It is the golden thread that civilizations wove into myth again and again. And the witch, she too, is not merely invention. She resembles the temple priestess, the one who enforces vows, controls fertility, guards the sacred power of hair, womb, and lineage. So Rapunzel is not only European, she is Sumerian, Indian, Egyptian, Norse. She is every culture's memory of how power, especially female power, was bound, controlled, and feared. And when a prince climbs her hair, he is not only a suitor, he is an intruder into a sacred chamber, a violator of vows, a challenger of ritual. His act is not romance, it is rebellion. Through these parallels, we see that Rapunzel's tale was never simply about love. It was about power, who controls it, who is denied it, and who dares to seize it. For archaeologists, Rapunzel's golden braid is not
Look
fantasy.
at the intricate braiding.
It is evidence. Excavations across the ancient world reveal one truth: hair was never treated as ordinary. In burials dating back 4,000 years, strands of hair were carefully preserved, braided, sealed in jars, or placed in amulets. In Egypt, entire wigs of human hair were found resting beside the dead, still shining after millennia. In Scandinavia, clumps of hair were buried in peat bogs, offerings to gods of fertility. In Peru, the Nazca wrapped their mummies with long braids, binding the dead in endless coils. Science explains why. Hair is one of the few parts of the human body that does not decay quickly. Long after flesh and bone return to dust, hair remains. It is the perfect vessel for memory, a fragment of the body that defies time. To our ancestors, this must have seemed like immortality. Hair became the soul's anchor, the thread that survives when all else is gone. This belief shaped ritual. Anthropologists note that in dozens of cultures, cutting the hair is a rite of passage, a child becoming adult, a novice entering priesthood, a mourner marking loss. To sever hair is to sever identity. To let it grow long is to accumulate power. Rapunzel's uncut hair stretching from tower to earth is an image of untouched potency, an unbroken line of vitality. Psychology too reveals its weight. Modern studies show that hair carries deep symbolic associations: strength, beauty, sexuality, freedom. Soldiers shave their heads to shed individuality. Prisoners are shorn to strip dignity. Lovers keep locks of hair as tokens of intimacy. The gesture is ancient, instinctive, older than written history. And then there is the tower. Archaeology tells us that towers were not always fortresses. In many cultures, tall enclosures served as ritual spaces, isolated chambers for initiates, places where fertility rites or sacred vows occurred. In Malta, temples from 5,000 years ago contain rooms accessible only through narrow, hidden passages. In Anatolia, priestesses were kept apart, dwelling in high structures that overlooked the settlements below. These were not prisons in the common sense, they were thresholds, liminal places between the ordinary and the divine. Combine these two symbols, hair and tower, and the story sharpens. A young girl set apart in a sacred enclosure, her hair left uncut as it gathers force, watched over by a guardian. It ceases to be a fairy tale and becomes a ritual of containment, a memory of practices once performed in stone chambers now lost to time. Even the witch's act of cutting Rapunzel's hair fits the pattern. Archaeologists studying Bronze Age Europe found caches of cut braids deposited in rivers as if offered to unseen powers. The severing of hair was sacrifice. To cut meant to release. In this light, the witch is not a villain, but a priestess carrying out the ritual, separating Rapunzel from her power, giving her essence back to the unseen. Modern science has added another layer. Chemical analysis of ancient hair reveals traces of diet, health, even drugs consumed. To ancient minds, this was invisible, but intuited hair was a record, a library of the body. No wonder they guarded it, feared it, wrapped it in myth. So when we hear of Rapunzel, the girl in the tower with endless hair, we should not dismiss it as fantasy. We should see it as a fossil of culture, a fragment of archaic ritual encoded in a story so children would remember what adults could not speak. The archaeology whispers hair was power, towers were temples, and the cutting of hair was sacrifice. The fairy tale is not invention, it is survival. Every image in Rapunzel is a symbol layered like a palimpsest. What seems simple is never simple. The tower, At first glance, it is only a prison, but towers are never just walls and stone. They rise above the world, out of reach, closer to the heavens than to the earth. In myth, towers are thresholds, liminal spaces between ordinary life and the divine. To be placed in a tower is to be set apart, not only hidden, but sanctified. In this way, Rapunzel's tower is not only confinement, it is initiation. She is sealed away as one who carries power too great to be free. The tower becomes a womb of stone. It shelters, it isolates it, prepares. The hair. It is not merely beautiful, it is alive. In cultures across the world, hair was the thread of vitality, the tether of the soul. Rapunzel's hair is her life made visible, spilling out of the tower, reaching toward the earth. It is the one part of her body that defies confinement, crossing the walls, bridging two worlds. When she lowers it, she is not only letting someone climb, she is offering access to her essence. Hair becomes both chain and ladder, bondage and liberation. When the witch cuts it, it is a ritual of severance, the breaking of her identity, the stripping of her force. The witch. In the softened tale, she is only the villain. Yet her role is older, heavier. She is guardian of the vow, keeper of the sacred chamber. She ensures that Rapunzel's power remains controlled. In ancient rituals, such figures were priestesses, watchers who oversaw transitions of life, fertility or death. To later generations, their power was remembered as menace, but their function was sacred to enforce boundaries. The witch, in truth, is less a monster than the embodiment of the old order, an order that feared unbounded female power and sought to contain it. The prince, he is the disruptor, the outsider. His climb up Rapunzel's hair looks romantic, but symbolically it is intrusion. He enters a forbidden chamber, breaking a vow, defying the guardian. His fall into thorns, blinded, punished, reveals the cost of trespass. Yet he also represents freedom, rebellion, desire. He is the force that breaks the old order, even at great risk. Through him, Rapunzel glimpses escape, and through her he discovers both love and suffering. Together, these four symbols form a cycle. The tower confines, the hair bridges, the witch guards, the prince intrudes. The story itself is a ritual in disguise: imprisonment, temptation, severance, and eventual rebirth. Even the details reinforce this pattern. The garden of herbs from which Rapunzel's mother stole plants associated with fertility. The thorns that blind the prince, symbols of suffering and sacrifice. The tears that heal his eyes, images of renewal, baptism, a second sight. Nothing is random. Everything points back to ancient patterns: life, death, confinement, release. Rapunzel is not a child's fairy tale. It is a coded map of human fears and desires, remembered in symbols when the rituals themselves were forgotten. The tower is the womb. The hair is the soul. The witch is the priestess. The prince is the trespasser. Through them, the story whispers the same truth. Power is dangerous. Freedom is costly, and every release is also a severing. At its heart, Rapunzel is not a story about love. It is a story about freedom and the price demanded for it. The tower is not only stone. It is every invisible wall society builds. It is the weight of tradition, the rules of family, the expectations of culture. We all live in towers of one kind or another, told that they are for our safety, when in truth, they are for control. Rapunzel's isolation is extreme, but it is also familiar. Who among us has not felt trapped, cut off from the world by structures we did not choose? Her hair is not only hers. It is taken, climbed, cut, used. It becomes a tool for others, witch and prince alike. This raises the deeper question: how much of ourselves truly belongs to us? Our beauty, our talents, our identities, are they our own, or are they constantly claimed, consumed, repurposed by others? Rapunzel's suffering whispers the truth. To be powerful is also to be vulnerable, for power always draws those who would control it. The witch embodies the shadow of authority. She believes she is guardian, protector, enforcer, but her protection is suffocation, her control a cage. In her, we see the paradox of power. It justifies itself as care, but its true purpose is domination. Even today, how many witches still exist, not cloaked in black robes, but in institutions, systems, hierarchies that dictate who may speak, who may rise, who must remain unseen. And the prince, too, is not so simple. He is freedom, but also intrusion. His desire to liberate Rapunzel is entangled with his desire to claim her. Liberation and possession move hand in hand. The tale forces us to ask, when we are rescued, are we truly free? Or have we simply exchanged one form of captivity for another? The philosophy of Rapunzel is unsettling. It suggests that freedom is never given, only seized, and always at cost. Rapunzel gains the world, but only after pain, exile, and the severing of her own hair. The prince regains sight, but only through blindness, wandering, and tears. Nothing is granted easily. Every step toward freedom requires sacrifice, loss, transformation. Perhaps this is why the story has survived so long. It speaks to something deep in the human condition, the recognition that our lives are bounded by towers we long to escape, by forces that cut us down, by desires that both liberate and ensnare. And yet within this endless cycle there is always a thread of hope. Rapunzel's tears heal blindness. Love survives the fall. Out of captivity something new is born. In this way, the tale is not simply a warning, it is also a mirror. It reflects the eternal struggle between confinement and release, authority and rebellion, captivity and love. It asks us whether we too are climbing hair toward freedom, or whether we are the ones holding the scissors. Rapunzel's curse, then, is not hers alone. It is ours. It is the curse of every age to long for freedom, to fear the cost, and to wonder whether liberation is ever complete. So what is Rapunzel truly? Not only a maiden with golden hair, not only a romance in a tower, but a survival of ritual, a memory of fear, a whisper of power, long buried beneath the stones of history. If such secrets can hide in a tale we tell to children, then what of the others? How many more bedtime stories are not innocent at all, but fractured echoes of forgotten rites? Snow White lying still in her glass coffin, waiting for a kiss. Sleeping Beauty cursed to slumber until time itself breaks. Cinderella bound by shoes of glass that wound as much as they dazzle. Are these only stories, or are they masks? Masks covering older truths, older trials, older fears. Perhaps Rapunzel is only the beginning, a single thread, golden and fragile, leading us deeper into a labyrinth of memory. If we follow it, we may find that every fairy tale is not a dream, but a tomb. Not fantasy, but archaeology. Not sweetness, but survival. So the question lingers, if Rapunzel's tower still stands in the imagination, what other prisons, what other curses still echo in the tales we thought were harmless?